James, thanks so much for doing this.
No worries at all.
We'll just get right into it. Tell us how you got started in property investing and finance, the world of finance.
So property investing before finance. So I was an avid watcher of Homes Under the Hammer, like a lot of us were. It's been on for 25 years now or something. So I think I was probably inspired around people I knew in property, but also watching that sort of world of property develop as I was a younger person.
Yeah.
So that really got me into the interest into renovating and doing up houses. And that led me to training. So I did some company called Legacy Education at the time. So we're going back sort of 2015, 16. And that got me first off into going from being an amateur landlord, buying a couple of door-uppers, and then brought me into understanding property can be a bit more professional.
So did you buy the properties before you done the course?
Had some properties before,
which
the first one I bought, I was only 20 and made 53,000 because I flipped that. And then we went down the route of sort of buying, selling, holding little bits. And then I did a stint in Asia, working out in Asia. So when I came back, I had some money to invest in property. So that took me down a journey of buying little bits and pieces, but not really knowing what I was doing. And I suppose you only know what you know. One thing I learned very quickly in property when I sort of went on this route of education was one of the things you don't know, and we're not educated on as a collective community, we're not educated on finance enough.
Absolutely.
So we go through school with very limited knowledge and experience, and we have limiting beliefs from what we know from our families and from our friends. You know, the credit card, is an emergency tool. It's not an asset. We buy assets for luxury reasons and we don't realize their liabilities. And those type of things aren't really educated to us when we're at school. So one of the things I sort of learned quite quickly was the age-old saying, don't look at a shovel when you're digging for gold, but somebody needs to supply the shovel, right? And finance is that shovel. And we forget that so commonly. So I realized quite quickly that I didn't have an endless pot of gold. So I needed to understand where my journey in this property cycle was going to go other than just trying to invest. And one thing we always need is money, and we need to understand money. So that took me down a route of becoming educated in finance myself. So I did that privately via getting my CMAP and then getting my equity release qualifications and most recently specialist finance qualifications. But when you have an interest in the subject, you don't mind investing that time and money into that. So that took me down from property into finance, and finance now has opened up my world to property. And we'll go on and talk about some of the creative stuff we do and some of our customers do, because we have that raw understanding of property education.
They go absolutely hand in hand, don't they?
You can't do one without the other.
You're a broker and you're a property investor. It couldn't be any better, really.
So I think what makes people nervous dealing with a broker that's also an investor, there's a concern that I might steal someone's deal, or we've got a different interest, and 100% our only interest is for our clients to be successful first and foremost, and my success is their success, and their success is my success. So having a client that does more and more deals is one, it's great for my business as a brokerage, and for we're 11 advisors now in the business, so it's great for them to have customers that are building portfolios out. But the risk is people go, well, actually, if I tell you the details and will you go and try? So we're not into none of that. We're very strict. In fact, we have done deals that clients haven't done, but that's only after clients say, actually, it's not one for me. And we've already done all the homework and the numbers. We go, well, actually, it's one for us.
As well, if you make them clients successful, like they're going to tell their friends, oh, you've got this great broker, and you're going to make money that way. So pinching someone's deal wouldn't make sense, would it?
No, our first and foremost is make our clients as successful as possible. And then the knock-on effect to that is that makes my business as successful as possible, which actually gives me the tools to go and buy property, right? That's what we're all about.
Right, so we'll go into what are some common mistakes you see investors make when it comes to finance and property? What are the big ones?
So I think one of the big ones is what the Joe down the pub said. So I think that's one of the big mistakes that you hear people, my mate said this, my mate said that, or I've seen on Facebook, or I've seen on LinkedIn, or that type of mistake. And what I mean by that is it goes back to poor education again. So if you don't understand the subject matter, then it's very easy to get misled. One of the big ones, and I know it's something you want to discuss today, is one of the big ones I see as a big mistake is people not understanding bridging correctly. And short-term finance, private investors, angel investors, whatever you want to call them. There's a whole journey on understanding that at the foremost and outset. Because if you understand how short-term finance works, it's a fantastic tool to make things, escalate quickly. And I think that's one of the bigger areas in the industry, which again, poor education, poor knowledge. So if you can get that right, you can get some of the stuff right.
And if you don't understand short-term financing, it can really bugger you up, can't it?
So traditionally, modelling of property investing was what we see a lot of is my dad bought a house, they did it up, they moved into another one, that became a rental, and that was quite a traditional model of sort of what I would say what you see like 90% of landlords doing. And short-term finance changed that for professional landlords because it became a tool in the toolbox along with other things. And it became a tool which you could get into quickly. You could take a pragmatic view on a property and a lender's looking at the property, not the individual as much. But the problem was there was a ticking time bomb. And this is the horror stories you hear with that. So that's one of the bigger mistakes I see is people getting to an end of a time bomb and going, oh, I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I didn't have enough money.
So the default on the bridge, basically.
And then that comes with fines.
Yeah,
it comes with fines.
That's happened to us.
And those mistakes happen.
We had a bridging loan and we defaulted on it for 3 months and it was $5,000 a month. It cost us.
So it's usually 5% as a rule, plus some fees.
So that was like a massive learning curve for us. We'll never do that again.
We got it on a really bad mortgage, didn't we? Because we just
to get out
of the bridge as soon as possible.
We agreed to silly terms on a mortgage just to get off it.
And I think that's where the difference working with a broker that understands property investing and a high street broker, because we have a journey that we take you on. So if we put you in a 12-month bridge with a 6-month plan, then at 3 months I expect my team to be calling you. And the bridges have changed a little bit. The type of professional bridges that we use, they're going to call you as well. So I'm a broker. I've got a bridge out at the moment. And every month, like clockwork, one of the portfolio managers at the bridging company rings me and says, James, how are we getting on? And I'm like, we're doing great. Here's some pictures. And it's like they've learned that they don't want you to default because they're borrowing money in the background as bridging companies. A lot of them don't use their own cash. They're using sources of funds. So that's the knock-on effect. So it has improved.
To be fair, on that one, it was our fault. It was our fault. We'll take responsibility for it.
It does happen. It does happen.
So...
Well, I think we needed that, I'll be honest.
I think so as well. I think so. You learn by your mistakes, don't you? If everything goes smooth all the time, you don't really learn.
It's not a lesson.
That was the most we've learned out of the property.
Definitely.
100%.
Well, they say the first one's a lesson, the second one's a mistake.
Exactly.
So it was a good lesson.
Interest rates are always a hot topic.
Yep.
What's the rate at the minute for your buy-to-let mortgages, and what lenders have got good deals on? What lenders do you like to work with?
So we work with about 180 lenders in the market. So we generally got a home for everything. And that's quite important because we deal with a range of different types of clients. Now, some of the best rates in the market, so we're now looking, obviously, the base rates come down somewhat, a little bit, not a huge amount, and obviously subject to when people are watching this clip or dictate where they are. So at the moment we're seeing, base rate late fours. We've got mortgages in 2.5%. If you can suffice the fee that the lender puts on it. So it's a balancing act. So you've got a low rate, massive fee.
What sort of fee would you be looking at?
So on that particular deal, that's with a company called CHL. I think they're at 2.63 is their best deal at the moment, and their fees are around 7%. So you're adding 7% fee as a rule, as an investor, to the loan, because that's what we do. We leverage the money. But you've got a good cash flow product. But then when you weigh that up against maybe a fee in the market where, say, we just did one with Fleet at 5.09 with no fee, So when you weigh that up, you reduce your cash flow, but you're not carrying risk forward.
Yeah.
And the reason I say risk is when you add the fee to the loan, you automatically increased your background cost. So say you've got a 100 grand mortgage, 100 grand property, you're 75% loan to value, you go and whack a 7% fee onto that. That's taking, you're not no longer at 75 grand as your mortgage value.
Yeah.
You're now at 107,000 true value.
Yeah.
Because you've added 7 grand to your product, and then you're taking 75% of that. So when you remortgage in 5 years, you're not remortgaging for the same net value. You've now got the same net value plus your fee that you've got to find 75% of.
Yeah.
That's great if you're in a high capital appreciation area, so predominantly towards the south of the country. We operate, together in the north, so we're in the northeast, northwest. I'm northwest, northeastern, or northeast and northwest at the moment. And we see we see adding a 7% loan, me personally, as a high risk strategy.
Yeah.
So I will try and go for more of a standard fee of sort of 2-3%. I will go to 5 if I see it's out there, but I've just done a remortgage now for myself personally, 5.79 with no fee.
Yeah.
Free legals, free valuation.
And do you always tie in for 5 years?
Yeah. I only go to the wishing well once. So that's a little saying that you'll hear me say if any customers deal with me. I worked at a brokerage when I first started this industry where they were sort of quite pragmatically go for 2 years and get a remortgage. It's for a brokerage, it's a good earner because you're going to get another broker fee, you're going to get another proc fee, which is what the lenders pay us. But actually, for me, I'd rather people lock in their 5-year deal or longer if they can. Their cash flow and product, they're going to get rent increases year on year. They don't need to worry about it. It's all fixed in as a budget point of view, and they can move on to their next product.
Yeah.
Don't go back and keep dipping in, because all you're doing is you're just eroding that natural equity you build. And subject to your long-term goal and your strategy, I don't know too many people that want to get into their 60s, 70s, 80s and have a portfolio stressed at 75% in the background. I'll be much more comfortable as me if my portfolio at 70 is probably in the 20s or 30s, because I've had a bit of natural growth, I've managed to pay down a little bit. But again, it comes down to people's whys, because we do have investors coming into the market in their sort of 60s and 70s, buying their first 2 or 3 properties, and of course they're in their sort of 75-80% market, loan to value. So
we always tie for 5 years, like just because it helps you plan your cash flow better. I think
fantastic budget, because it gives you that tool. If you know the rents at that moment is 700 and your fixed monthlies 350, you know where you are, and you know your rent's going to creep up a little bit. But also, if the rent doesn't creep up, it also doesn't matter. You're not stressing them. You can have a really good tenant in there for 5 years, and you're still getting that sort of happy day one margins. But
So James, when is a property unmortgageable?
So definition of unmortgageable is quite an interesting one. So we would normally say in the industry, no bathroom, no kitchen, and as a rule, it will come down. As a rule, it will come down to valuer's discretion. So there's the famous phrase of it's got a sink, it's a kitchen. If it's got a toilet, it's a bathroom. But there's a lot of valuers in today's market that won't consider that a safe security for a lender. So what we would generally say to a customer is, how much work are you going to do on it? And that's become a little bit more of a viewpoint from a lender. If you're doing significant refurb work, now significant refurb work is anywhere in the region of about 20% plus of the market value. So you're buying a property for 100,000 and you're going to spend 20k on it. You would say that's probably quite a significant level of work. And we don't mean cosmetic. You're moving in, you want to change the carpets and the windows, the carpets and the paintwork. We're talking about coming in, changing bathrooms, kitchens, windows, that sort of stuff. So for a mortgageable condition, it's always going to be a valuer's discretion, but always err on the side of caution, because you go down a journey on a mortgage, which can take maybe 4 to 6, 8 weeks, and then find out you can't get lending on it.
And if it is unmortgageable, is that your options are then, am I right to say you're either a cash buyer or it's bridge and finance?
Yeah, exactly that. So you on occasion, you can do something a bit more creative where you can do maybe an exchange with delayed completion, or the valuer may take a view on it and do they do a sort of deferred amount. So, you know, they may come in and say, well, hold back 10 grand of the £100,000 we're going to lend you until works are done, and then you can show us. Now, that may be a case of they want to replace windows or certainly more sort of general stuff.
Yeah.
But if you get into things like where a valuer will find damp or timber issues, wall tie issues, that type of more, you know, fabric of the building issues, at that point, then you get into that unmortgageable stage.
Yeah.
And that is, cash buyer is key at that point, because you can obviously negotiate a better deal. And obviously bridging then, where bridging lender, now some bridging lenders will even then, depending on the severity of the report, will still reduce their risk, and they want to see monies in the bank to do the works. Yeah, so we see a bit of construction issues. Obviously, being a specialist lender, a specialist brokerage, working with specialist lenders, we get a few inquiries on that side. Those type of inquiries, certainly because we're on the border of Scotland as well. Obviously, we've got a lot of timber frame in Scotland, so we're used to a timber frame type specialist construction. But there is concrete, steel framed, non-standard, lodge style properties.
Can you get mortgages on lodges?
Not so much on lodges, because there's no general title.
Right.
But if it's got a title, then we have lenders. If we go into a more asset class, when it's a lodge on a holiday park type thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we see all this sort of quirky stuff because they're usually good cash flowing assets.
Yeah.
And they're usually away from the general public because nobody can generally deal with them.
Yeah.
So you see them as good investment opportunities. You know, we were looking at a flat which had a 60-year lease left on it. Being a reduced lease, not a great asset for a mortgage lender. However, if you had 60 grand cash in the bank, actually quite a good asset, because you could generate £2,000 or £3,000 per month on service accommodation, which there was no covenant on the building to be able to do that. So you could literally do service accommodation.
Yeah.
So if you had that for the next 60 years at £3 grand a month, that's going to make you a really nice investment property. That's the sort of quirky stuff you generally see, but very difficult lending on. Similar situation with construction.
Yeah. So when you're buying property, is it better to buy in your company name or in your personal name, or when is each one suitable?
Yeah, so really interesting question. And it's a debate that's been going on for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Personally, I buy a limited company.
Yes, we do.
Just for me, it's about knowing what you know. And I think with a limited company, there's a set of rules that we can all work to. And they're quite fair rules. You know, you get taxed on your profits, not your income. And those set of rules at this moment in time are quite transparent. I think the problem comes in personal tax, where we've seen a number of tax changes and governmental policy changes. And I think they're still going to continue to change. We see the Renters Reform Act coming in, and all sorts of bits that we've seen in Scotland and in Wales. Licensing coming in, council tax hitting us. So I think it's a very personal part of the process. But if you're in property for the long term and you're going to build a sizable portfolio, having that income against your personal name and being taxed against it is a massive risk.
Yeah.
You know, because it doesn't take long, as we know, having a few HMOs, a few service accommodation, a few buy-to-lets, and you're pushing up your income bracket, and you're being taxed on that income. Obviously, we've had mortgage relief reduced, you know, down to 20%. So where you used to be able to offset that expense, you can't anymore on personal name. And what you also say to younger people coming into the industry, you don't actually know what the next 20 years holds for you.
Yeah.
So, you know, you guys are quite young in your business. You know, you're all under 40. What's to say in 10 years' time, one of you don't get a fantastic opportunity and you become a CEO of a corporate and you're earning 150 grand a year? You probably don't want in your personal name a big chunk of income coming in that's going to keep, you know, you're paying an extortionate amount of interest, extortionate amount of tax. Where if you had it in a limited company, you can tax wrap it out and protect yourself. You do need that sort of tax advice. As a mortgage broker, a lot of brokers won't even engage in that element. But as an investor, as an investment-led broker, you know, we can steer you in a way to get that advice and then make the calculative choices. One of the offsets of that was interest rates used to be a bit higher on limited companies. But we've seen the model change now because more and more investors are in limited companies, so interest rates are sort of averaged out across them.
And would it be easier to sell your portfolio if it was in a limited company? Or would it not make a difference, really?
Yeah, so to be honest, it's something that's coming to the market quite heavily now. You see lenders again. We saw the change from a lot of lenders being in the personal space, so doing personal buy-to-lets, to lenders coming across the limited company buy-to-lets. And now we're in the next wave of change, which we're just starting to see now, where share purchases coming into play.
Yeah.
So obviously on share purchases, at this moment in time, subject to when you watch this, it's 0.5% on stamp duty compared to the tiered stamp duty on a limited company buy-to-let, starting at sort of 5%. So if you look at a share purchase on a £300,000 asset and you're buying the shares at 0.5% of the value compared to the current market stamp duty price, there's a massive advantage to that.
Yeah.
There is a downside though, and this is the newness of this strategy. Although it's not new, it's a more coming into the more the mainstream.
Yeah.
And the downside of that is, if you're buying the shares in a limited company, there's a lot more due diligence on the limited company, what debt's sitting in the background, what risk has that company been exposed to that you may not see, what liabilities and PGs and stuff has someone signed away on your behalf before you buy that. So there's going to be a movement in that space in the next few years, but we're starting to see it now. So some of the big high street banks, Shawbrook, Alica, HTB, they're in that space already.
Yeah.
We won't necessarily see the TMWs of this world, the mortgage works and the mortgage lender, because they're more vanilla. But certainly the more challenger banks are coming into that space. So quite interesting.
It is. It's very interesting. So we touched on it already, but I want to move on to bridging loans. Like, I've got a few friends who do property and stuff like that, and everyone seems to be like kind of scared of bridging finance.
Yeah.
It is expensive and it is risky, but we use it literally all the time. Near enough every deal we do, we use a bridge, flip it onto a mortgage.
Yeah.
So will you just talk us through bridging loans and why they are risky and how they work and stuff like that?
So I think risk is the first thing to get out of the way, because risk is the big one that we all sort of resonate back to. It's all about default, and we sort of touched on it earlier. Default is the key to the risk around bridging. So from a bridging lender, they look at the asset more over the person or the limited company. So they're looking at their risk around the asset. Now, if that asset, they're lending at 75% less interest, so their max exposure is 75%, and there's some more quirky stuff, but let's just work off the 75% model. At the end of that 12 months, if their commitment is 75% on that asset, if it's an unregulated asset, they can take that to auction relatively quickly, subject to their terms and conditions, and release that funds to a level where they're comfortable. Now, it's probably fair to say most scenarios where bridging has gone wrong, you've already added value to that property. You've already done heavy refurbs. You're maybe right at the end of something. You've just been trying to deal with some utility issues or relatively small items, but can be cumbersome to get over. So from an asset management point of view, from a bridging company, that's a great product to probably get your money back. And I actually heard one bridging company say to me recently, it's not all doom and gloom for them at the back end, because they can actually pick up some quite interesting assets in a possession type scenario, which is a real horrible thing to hear say.
Yes, it's almost like awfully they kind of want you to fail.
It sounded like that when they said it to me. I think it was a case of their back end's not as bad as it looks.
So it's not as risky for them.
Yeah, I think if they've got an asset where they've been talking to you all the way through and you've had a few challenging points, the one thing which is, or the worst thing to do with a bridging company is not talk to them.
Yeah.
If things go wrong, not to talk to them is worse than pretending it's all right. So if you pick up the phone and say, look, we're at month 7 on a 12-month, we've got a massive problem with utilities. This is becoming a real sticking point. A lot of the mainstream bridges, the professional bridges out there, and there's a lot of them, they will work with you.
Yeah.
They will talk to you about that. What can they do? Is there an extension? Are you giving them enough notice? Are you giving them time so they can plan their funding lines? And I think that's the communication element. So that there's a whole risk element, I think, is the first thing. And the risk element passes on to the consumer, us.
And do you personally use a lot of bridging finance yourself?
Yeah, like everything I do is bridging. The same as you guys, by the sounds of it. I'm a bridging, add the value, exit on a mortgage. And again, like yourselves, I'm exit on a mortgage and leave it. Don't touch it again. The bridge gives me that speed to get in, and speed in the property investor world is like the, you know, I don't want to say the cocaine of the industry, but it's like it's just probably not the right thing to put on YouTube, but that might get banned for that. But the speed is like the oil that makes the wheels cog and makes them smooth, because getting gazumped, having a vendor pull out or seller pull out, having elements that can be overcome quite easily, like title restrictions and stuff like that. A bridging lender allows you to grease those wheels, get it done quick, get that decision over the line, and then you can deal with a little bit of the nuances afterwards. That's
what we're all striving for, speed, because everything seems to take so long. That's why, I mean, we've only ever bought one at auction, but that's why I really liked it, because it's 28-day completion and everyone's pulling together.
Yeah,
we've got great like solicitors and guys we use and stuff, and it just makes the deal happen so much faster. So it's
So quickest bridge we've done at Castleview is 4 days. We've got a couple of lenders that do 24-hour emergency bridging. We've not needed to use it. We don't generally have clients in that scenario. And a 4-day purchase was somebody releasing cash to do an acquisition in Tenerife, because the builder in Tenerife was about to pour about 150 grand of their deposit they were about to lose. So it was almost like it creeped up on them a little bit. So they've released the money out of their portfolio to invest overseas. The quickest one I've done this year myself personally, as I use bridging, was 19 days. Would have been 15 days, but the lady couldn't get a van to move out. So that pushed us back a bit. We did one at Christmas in 29 days. Again, that was auction purchase, but it was...
It's music to your ears, them sort of timelines.
Some bridging lenders make you feel like it goes on forever. But I feel that usually comes in when there's more development elements around it, you know, GDV elements, gross development elements, or schedule of works not being transparent, and that will usually delay the process rather than speed up the process. If you've got your ducks in a row, there's no reason it can't be done in 4 to 6 weeks.
Brilliant. So I'd want to touch on development finance. This is something I don't really know much about myself. It does interest me, obviously, but can you just talk us through it? Like, what kind of deposit do you need? Do you draw down like a self-build mortgage? What kind of projects would you use it for? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so although I'll be picked up on this as not factually correct, so development finance is like a big bridge.
It's like a what?
It's like a big bridge.
Right.
So, and if you think of it like that, because most development lenders won't want to take a second charge, they want a first charge. So you're already tied into them on a part of an acquisition, or they're going to take ownership of the site. So that's the first thing. That's like a bridge. And then when you add on the development element on the back end, that's usually funded in arrears, subject to the loan to value of the development. So we see a lot of what I would say early stage developers that don't have bucket loads of cash. So they go in 75% LTV, so they're buying at 75%, less their interest in their fees. So they're usually down to about 60%, 63%. And then as long as the GDV, the gross development value, stacks up according to the valuer, according to the schedule of works, so the schedule of works and the cost of works, we're then arranging lending against that cost of works. Now there's a couple of caveats. Those caveats are quite straightforward. So a lender will like an exposure limit. So they will usually say something like 65% loan to GDV. So that's their maximum exposure on that project. So that includes buying the asset and spending the money on the asset. And they want to see any top up come from the investor. And the other side of the coin is, what is the schedule of work? So you get light work, medium, heavy, and then ground up is the real sort of 4 areas we see in our industry as property investors. Big scale property development is slightly different because there's a different range of banks and a different level of exposure. But if you're talking about buying a house and refurbing it and you need some money for the works, that's your light end. So you're just doing a bathroom and a kitchen, you're going to spend 20 grand, but it's going to be worth a significant amount more. Your medium stuff might be you're into doing a major rip out inside, so you may be doing some internal restructuring, changing floors, moving walls, reconfiguring the services, and that might be a medium level. Your heavy is when you're getting into how many walls are going to be left on this building site when you're finished. And you're putting on side extensions, dormers, ground floor extensions, double extensions, maybe building that into the garden. So that's your sort of heavy level of work. And then you're into your ground up. And your ground up is, you've got a house, you've got a plot of land next door, which you've got with a house. You carve up the land, you go for planning permission, and you're going to ground up build a 1, 2, 3 bed block of flats, whatever it may be. So development work in similar numbers to Bridgeham, so your interest rates worked out monthly, annualized, and then that's just subtracted as the drawdowns come down. Things you need to watch out on development finance is pretty straightforward. So when are you going to use the money? Because that's when your interest usually starts. Your initial application fee usually covers a cost for that development. So say you're borrowing 100 grand, but you need 200 grand worth of works. They usually put your application fee against the 300,000 that you're asking as a facility. Right. So that's an upfront cost that most people don't realise. And the other thing I think, which is a real killer, which people usually don't read right, is how much does it cost when I need the money? So you take the bridge or take the development finance, they take the first charge. They then come in and you want to spend 200 grand and you're going to take that in 4 drawdowns. What the lender will usually want you to do is you spend 50, give them a call.
Of your own money.
Of your own money. You spend 50, in this scenario, you spend 50, you give them a call. They will send a quantity surveyor or an assessor out on site. We'll come and see what you've done for that 50 grand. We'll assess if that's true value for money and then lend you the 50 grand you've already spent. So you've got skin in the game.
And will they want receipts and invoices to prove you've spent that 50?
Correct. So this can sometimes become a challenge when you're into self-build model, where you've got builders doing their own developments, because usually they've only got material costs. They don't usually factor in their labour and their time, and that can be a problem if you're in the trades. But ultimately, if you're running a trade business and an SVP, you can self-invoice and manage that. What some lenders will want to see, they will actually want to see your money leaving your bank account and being deposited elsewhere. So they want to see spend. So
they want to see your money going into your business.
Potentially.
If you're invoicing yourself.
Yeah, potentially. Or they want to see, certainly you paying the builder. So they want to see, if you're paying Castleview builders or developments, they want to see your business on a transaction, invoices to suit, and they're going to check that invoice against works done, check the quality of works to make sure it's been done to standard. And then usually release the money, the 50k, or in that scenario, usually relatively quick. So, 24 hours, 48 hours in some instances.
In this hypothetical scenario, you've got to put the first 50k in yourself for the actual works. When you're buying the property, do you have to put the 25% deposit down as well? So you've got to put both. That's your initial outlay, then you can draw down your finance.
So your initial outlay would be your 25%, usually minus your interest and your fees. So you're then sort of on a loan to value of sort of 60%, 65%. And then they're going to want to see some money for their initial stage of works. So your skin's right in the game at this point. And this is where what catches people out. So if you go into a development of, say, 150,000, by the time you actually start putting in the money into money for the works, because you're going to spend another 150,000 to turn it into a 500 grand asset, you've got to start outlaying some proper money. So it's not usually a first time model. It's not a first time user model. Although there's lenders that will allow you to jump in at that level, but you do need to have the collateral around you to be able to play in that market. But risk and reward, right?
Absolutely. And what's some other creative ways to buy properties? That any deals, any sort of things we haven't touched on?
So again, a lot of the creative stuff revolves around short-term finance, so bridging. And that's really because the bridging lenders are more creative in their own right. They're more acceptable and more adaptable to the creative strategies, and some of the bridging lenders are forefront runners of the creative side and actually putting the creativity into the market. I love BMV, so below market value purchasing. I've done 2 in the last 3 months. 4 months, sorry, where I'll buy below what the true value is. I'll get a lender to lend me a lend against the open market value, and I'll leverage that up to 100% of the purchase price. So a couple of examples I'll share with you later on that.
Yeah.
I also like vendor finance, or what we would call deferred consideration.
Yeah.
Basically what that means is you're borrowing the money to do the transaction, but you're going to pay the vendor maybe at the back end.
Yeah.
And providing that in essence becomes a loan agreement, a vendor finance, or deferred consideration as the legal team would consider it, providing that's bulletproof, and the lender's not at risk. Some lenders are okay with that. So that's two really quite creative strategies.
Yeah. And I spoke to a guy at the last networking event, and he said about assisted sale.
Yeah, so
that's really interesting, isn't it?
That's a great property strategy for building capital. From a finance point of view, not one that's very easy to finance, because when you're doing the assisted sale, I'm assisting you to sell your rundown property.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, but it's your property. So lenders want security against the property, and you might not be in a position to get that security or get that funding with that security. So usually what assisted sale is great for, if I've got 50 grand in the bank, your house is 400 grand, we agree a £400,000 transaction, but you can't sell it. I spend 50k on it, but now it's worth 550.
Yeah.
I've actually made 100 grand, and you've had a much easier asset to sell.
Yeah.
And you still get your 400, and that's what you wanted. So it's great for building that pots of cash without taking the exposure and the risk level.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of really good title split. We do a lot of title splitting, where we're getting lending against the open market value of a split asset, but actually we're buying the collective, block at the moment. So that's quite a good one. We did one which was over 100% lending on that just in January this year.
So just touching on that 100% financing, say you're buying a property for say it's worth 100 grand and you're getting it for 75. They'll give you the full 75 grand, so you literally won't have to put any deposit down.
Well, yeah. So,
and how do you find that with the lenders? Like, will they not take what you're paying for it as the market value? Do you know what I mean?
So 99% of lenders will use the purchase price
as the market value,
as the market value, because that's what you're paying for it.
Yeah.
We have a handful of lenders that look at the open market value and take that risk against that.
Yeah.
So actually 75 grand on £100,000 purchase is not enough to be no money in, because in that scenario you still need to find your fees, your interest, etc. So you'll still be putting in that probably 1% a month deducted, so like 12% for your interest. The best example I give you is one I've done personally.
Go for it.
So in JNY, one of my property groups, we bought at auction 51,000. So it would be fair to say the open market value of that was 51,000.
Yeah.
We sent round a valuer. He valued it at 90,000 day one. So we've got a 90,000 day one valuation, which we bought for 51,000, literally at Christmas. Yeah. When everybody else is at home shopping for Christmas presents, we're shopping for houses. So we bought that, and the lender gave us 56,000 day one. Yeah, so we got a gross bridge loan.
Yeah.
56,000. So we bought it for 51. Gross bridge loan of 56.
Yeah.
Our net bridging loan after interest was 49,948.
Aye.
So we bought it for 51, and we got 49 grand. That's about as close as I can get it.
Aye, and you're just putting basically your 2 grand in plus fees.
So all my solicitor fees were covered off in that, because that was in my gross loan in my 56.
Right.
So my solicitor's fees were covered off.
Was the stamp covered?
Stamp technically was covered, because we bought it at auction and I paid 3 grand deposit. So although I paid 51 for it, my solicitor got from the lender 49,900.
Yeah.
And of course I'd already put on the transaction 3 grand for auction fees and 3 grand deposit. So actually I had more money in the kitty than I needed. So there was more than enough money there to cover all my fees, stamp duty, with what I'd already put in, because I'd already in the game for a little bit of money.
Well, that just shows you, like, I mean, them deals probably don't come along very often, but there is ways to get into property with relatively low money.
So I've done 2 this year. So
there you go.
One of the reasons, we like to think we're quite a forward thinking brokerage. And one of the reasons I've done some of the deals I've done of late is to show people it can be done.
Yeah.
Because one of the things in property is very good, very easy and very good to get education, but it's hard, as we know, to be in a room with somebody and say, I've physically done that. and I can show you the results. And then here's my limited company where you can see the results. And
Definitely.
here's my set of accounts to show you that. And this is my completion statement. And I find that, and we talked about inspiring before we started talking today, I find that inspires people to think it can be done rather than they've read it in a book or they heard it at a seminar.
100%.
That's quite painful.
It's miles more, it impacts you miles more coming from someone you know, someone you can see in the flesh rather than even a YouTube video or like you see a book or anything like
Correct.
that.
Yeah.
Definitely. So that just leads us perfectly into my next question, which was to touch on some of your deals. Is there any others you want to touch on? Give us some info.
So obviously I mentioned the auction one at Christmas, so we just finished that. So I'll share some pictures with you if you wanted to check them in. But we bought that at auction 51.
Yeah.
We got 49 on the outset. We had that valued by an estate agent, not by a valuer, but by an estate agent. They would put it on the open market now of 135 to 140.
Yeah.
And we spent about 25k on that. So that deal in total, we're in Bridgend for 56. Obviously I put $6,000 in. So we're in for 72. We spent about 22. We're just doing the final numbers. So, we're in for what? Let's call it 100.
Yeah.
And that's been revalued at 135-ish.
Yeah.
So, Tommy put a mortgage on that, 75%.
Full money out.
All money out. So that is a classic. But you see the margins on the front end. We made our money when we bought it because we bought it for 51 and it was worth 90. So that's the skill set there. I did one end of last year going into this year. So that's a local Carlisle property we bought for 60. We spent 25 on that. So that was a off-market deal. Somebody contacted me on Facebook and said, here you buy houses. Of course I buy houses, They wanted 65. I offered 59. Needed everything. Didn't hear anything for 2 days. Clearly insulted the young lady that was selling it. The knock-on effect to that was I contacted and said, look, I didn't mean to offend you. I know you needed 65. Where you at? And she said, well, I actually need another $1,000 so I can split my ex 30-30, £30,000 each. So I said, well, I'll think about it. Gave it an hour, messaged her back saying, look, I can find an extra $1,000.
Yeah.
So we bought it for 60. We did a bridge.
Yeah.
Because I got property in the background, I could leverage an 85% bridge instead of a 75% bridge. So that gave me a little bit more money day one. So my net on that was about 75%. So I put in 22k into that deal on the outset with my fees and my stamp. We then spent just shy of 25 grand. We joked about it before we started talking, but my 71-year-old dad did a fair chunk of that work.
Yeah.
So again, to be transparent, I didn't pay a contractor rates.
Yeah.
I paid for a few bits. We had some roof work done. I got a contractor in for the garden, naturally a heating engineer in to do the boiler and electrician to sign off the electrics. But the kitchen we did, the bathroom we did, repairing the floor and doing that sort of stuff we did.
Yeah.
So we spent about 22 grand on that. That's going through Aldermore refinance right now. So 5.79 mortgage, 0 fee, because where it is in Carlisle, I don't think I'll make a big capital appreciation on that. So strategizing for the outcome.
Yeah.
And that valued, estate agents valued at 125 to 135. Valuer came out, which was a Connell's valuer, which I know sometimes can be a bit touchy in our industry. Come out, fantastic valuation, 135 on the button. So we're dragging 49,500 out of that deal.
Yeah.
Because we've only been in the bridge a short period of time, that interest we talk about deducting at the front, I'm getting some of that back.
Yeah.
So to sweeten that deal, I improved the EPC from an F to a C, and a Bridgend lender has a green credentials where they give you £1,000 if you improve the EPC. So I got £1,000 back on that, and I'm saving on that particular deal around 3.5 grand in interest fees, which are coming back to me. So it's not always about the price of the bridging; it's sometimes about the speed of the deal. Yeah. Not just in, but also getting out. So
yeah, that's brilliant.
That's a good deal.
What you touched on there about doing work yourself, and that, I think that's absolutely key, especially when you're first starting out. You can save so much money and help you recycle your money way faster if you're willing to get your hands dirty and do a little bit yourself. And such as yourself, getting a hand off your dad. And if people aren't able, if they've got people who can help them do that work and save some money, I think it's key to getting started, man.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because everybody knows a plumber, electrician, plasterer.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people are nervous of asking because they they think people are judgmental.
Yeah.
But you're 100% right. If you can leverage, Will, the community around you, and I think about family, friends, neighbours, it will save you money.
Yeah.
You have to outweigh money versus time,
Yeah.
which we know. And as you get into more deals, you guys are talking about the phenomenal stuff you guys are doing just in the last few weeks, and it's mind blowing. Once you've got a row of a pipeline of deals coming through, you have to start picking and choosing what you get involved in. But that sweat equity that you create in the early days actually builds pots of cash for the later days.
And even if you've got no skills yourself, everyone can strip wallpaper and pull skirting boards up.
Pull carpets is my favourite.
And do tip runs and that.
Yeah.
Just things like that.
Yeah.
You can save yourself a couple of grand doing that sort of stuff. Tip runs and stripping wallpaper, ripping skirting boards off.
I'm doing a bit of painting on the back end,
absolutely.
and just being part of the project. We see a lot of investors that contact us where they've come to a belief that property is almost like a given. We become entitled when we talk about property, and the sweat equity on every aspect, from project management to stripping the carpets, is so valuable. And the more you put in, the more you get out.
Absolutely.
100%. Even if a deal's going sideways, when you can start saving a few thousand here and a few hundred there, get involved in knowing where to buy the right stuff from and the right prices, having the right trades, suppliers, merchants behind you, will make all the difference.
Like we know property's brilliant. I love it. You love it.
Yeah.
We love it, don't we? But fucking hell, I forgot what I was going to say there.
You're going down time. Down time.
Give us a sec.
What I want to ask you, James, as like a property investor, and you've got them separate businesses, haven't you? You say GI.
Yeah, so we've got a few businesses. So I JV with people.
Yeah.
And I'm quite open about that, because go far together or go fast alone. So you can make quick decisions on your own, and sometimes JVs take different trains of decision making. However, what I would say is, when you get into a JV with somebody, you're almost getting into a marriage.
Yeah.
So I've got a great relationship with a builder in Newcastle, which me and him are like brothers. We do stuff together. We have a really strict policy of how we work. One, everything's 50-50, transparent as it needs to be. He does the build, I do the buy. That doesn't mean he's not involved in the buy. He's very much heavily involved in looking at property, finding property. But I manage the finance element of it, and he manages smashing it out. So we did 2 back to brick in like 6 weeks, because he just absolutely hammered it.
When you're doing JVs, I think the key, not that I've done any, but I think the key is to team up with people whose skills complement yours.
Correct.
It's pointless 2 builders teaming up or 2 guys in finance teaming up.
Yeah, correct. And that's really, and your JVs are different to my JVs, because yours are with your brothers.
Yeah.
So you've got a blood bond.
Yeah.
So you are inherently bound together, if you like it or not.
I like it or not.
But I think from a JV is such an interesting concept, because the more you do in property, the more you get into different stuff and your skill sets change.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got 3 JVs at this moment in time. One with my wife, so that's pretty much a given. I've got one with a builder, and I've got one with a Southern-based investor model. And they all work for different things and different types of projects. So our biggest project at the moment is purchase of 500,000 and GDV 2.4. But the smallest project we've done was the 51,000 purchase, but refinancing out at sort of 130, 140. So different skill sets, different models, different properties. But yeah, go far together is a model which you should relish.
100%.
And I think just know who you're getting in bed with. You don't get in bed on the first night, but do your due diligence, cover off where you are. If someone says they've got the money, then see the whites of their eyes. If someone hasn't got the money, but they got the experience, see the experience, get into bed with them, understand what they're all about. And I think that's powerful. So, I wear my heart on my sleeve, because there's a lot of people in this industry that talk a good game, but when you look at their limited companies, or you look at their portfolio, or you look at their credit report, doesn't always dictate how good they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
So I just want to redo that bit that I messed up on.
Yeah, go, yeah. What was you going to say?
So property's great. I love property, like we love property, so do you, but it is very hard work. There's a lot of work goes into it, isn't there? There's a lot of phone calls, emails, and like we said, sweat equity in the early days, and you know yourself, it's not just straightforward to buy a house and rent it out.
Yeah.
It's great, but it is hard work, isn't it?
Oh yeah, massively. Yeah. So I think you've hit on so many key areas there, from the source, you know, being good at sourcing or being good at finding property is an art in its own right.
Yeah.
Being credible for the finance and understanding how you're going to manage that, again, is another area. The refurb, if you get a refurb right, get it wrong, makes all the difference on the strategy. And understanding the strategy, you know, what you're actually going to do with this property, just spend 100 grand on. You know, what is the right strategy? Is it going to flip it? Are you going to keep it? Is it a rental? Is it a SA? Is it a HMO? And then you go across the line then, and you go into the consumer world of renting, you know, tenancy agreements, renters' rights, right to work, right to live, right to rent, all that sort of jazz. You know, should they be here in the first place? You know, have they got a right? And then if you get it wrong, the fines and the penalties around it. So I think it's a calculative choice to get into property nowadays. So the rewards come with risk. And that sweat equity is all part of that journey as well. You know, doing your due diligence on where to rent it. Because if you go and pay a letting agent 18%, I heard someone quote me the other day, 18% on the back end, that's 18% of your turnover. Jesus, you know, that's a lot of money, you know. Absolutely. So if you can negotiate a really good letting agent that's in the tens, you know, 10%, 11%, and you factor that in on the front end and your numbers, you've got no horror stories and shocks. But you also got to leave a bit on the table for somebody else. So don't beat your builder up to get him as cheap as possible, because he will end up cutting corners. Because if you cut his margin, he'll cut your corners. Same with your merchants and your suppliers. If you go and beat them down on lowest price, they will offer you something cheaper. But will that last as long as you want it to? So there's you know, buy cheap, buy twice sometimes. And that's the same with your letting agents and your professional services. If you scrimp them, don't expect the best service, you know, because somebody who's paying 12%, but you get them down to 8%, you know, who do you think they're going to answer the phone to first?
It's that saying, isn't it? You get what you pay for, don't you? Most of the time.
Yeah. Most industries.
Where do you find that you're spending most of your time now? Then are you viewing properties? Are you just talking to investors or sort of finance?
Yeah, so obviously the day job's the finance side. So my element of my projects, I finance pretty quickly. I generally know where they're going before they go there. So I look at a deal, I already know what lender I'm going to put that with. But that's the insight. It's like knowing a builder's going to know, you know, what are they going to use on that particular wall. So for me, most of my time is probably spent finding the money nowadays, you know, because my projects are getting bigger and bigger. And time costs money in regards to when I'm in a deal, the money's tied up. So we've probably got a couple 100,000 tied up at the moment, probably a bit more than that, tied up in deals, which should all recycle back, but as the deals come around. So when you're into the next deal, it's making sure you've got the money available, readily available for that deal, or what percentages you need. So finding the money is a challenge for me, personally, because I don't like asking for money. I'm not going to go to the market and openly ask for money. I find that uncomfortable. So that's probably a big part of my time spent. Finding the deals generally come to me, and that sounds pretty arrogant. But we deal with a lot of agents, we deal with a lot of sourcing agents. So this year alone, I've probably had more than 10 deals come to me, which if I don't do, I'll pass on to you know, investors on our portfolio books that we look after. We generally know when investors are in the market to buy, not because we know their position in their personal circumstance, but they usually tell us. They usually say, James, you got anything coming up? You know, do you know anybody who's selling anything, any retiring investors? But what I am finding now is more time doing due diligence on the more creative deals that I'm doing myself. Because that's so powerful. You know, we've got in our pipeline right now, we're buying about 6, and they're all big commercial or big HMOs. So the due diligence on the rents and the income is heavily weighed, and we don't really want to get them wrong. So you know, we're looking at deals in the sort of 200,000 to 600,000, with GDVs from, you know, ranging from 4 to 1 million.
Nice.
So it's a lot of time spent on that for me personally.
Yeah. Brilliant. So, quick fire round.
Go for it. I like this bit. This is going to be fun.
One word answers only.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Fixed rate or variable?
Fixed.
Residential or commercial?
Love commercial.
Yeah. We don't have any commercial, like.
No, I've got one. Love it. Yeah.
Cash flow or capital growth?
Cash flow. Always cash flow.
Yeah.
Look after the gold coins before you
Cash
look after.
king.
Yeah, 100%. You get out of trouble with cash. Capital appreciation is just glory in it.
Yeah. That's the cherry on top, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
That's the retirement project, isn't it?
HMO or holiday let?
So I'm going to say holiday let,
Yeah.
but I just got to caveat that for a reason.
Yeah, go for it.
No tenants, in and out, easy, quick transactional money, and you get to see your property because your reviews tell you the condition of your property. So we've got SAs, so we know if there's a problem because someone will leave a review.
Yeah.
HMOs, it's about community. If you get a bad tenant, you get a bad apple. You could end up with one bad apple and end up with 6 bad tenants.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got both. HMO is great for consistent cash flow, but holiday lets is a little bit similar to commercial in my book. If something goes wrong, you can deal with it quickly.
Yeah. I think I know the answer to this one. North or south?
Yeah, I'm north. I'm as a brokerage, I champion south.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do 100%. But the reason I say that is if you're a savvy investor, and I like to consider myself and people in my network as savvy investors, there's some fantastic deals in the south. Title splits, big HMOs, commercial to resi. If you've got the kahunas to go and do it, and you've got some brass behind you, then that's the champion because you can get massive appreciation and massive cash flow.
Yeah.
But I haven't got all the kahunas sometimes, and I'm a better cash flow in the north.
So if you could only invest in the north or south from now forward, where would you pick?
Yeah, north.
North, yeah, I would as well.
Yeah.
Last one, auction or estate agent?
Auction all day long.
Speed,
attitude, get it done, get in, get out.
Yeah.
You've got opportunities, risk, but you've got opportunities with estate agent. There's always someone gonna in the deal. You know, I can go and look at a house been on. I can look at a commercial property been on the market for a year, put an offer in, and there's 4 other offers in all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Who's talking this nonsense?
Yeah, estate agents. Most of them are good, but not all of them.
They're there to do a job, and it's not to make me any money.
No. Right, last question. Just a little bit of a fun one. A dream place to own a property if you had an unlimited budget?
So if we go wider than the UK,
Well, I'm talking about the world. Yeah.
So I lived in Asia for quite a long time, and I love Asia. So if I had a choice, I would probably be in somewhere really glamorous back in Malaysia because I lived in Malaysia for 3 years and I loved it to bits. I love the way of life and the culture of the people.
Oh, nice.
And you can buy land and develop something unbelievable in that climate. Equally, my retirement plan is probably Portugal at the moment.
Yeah.
So I
like
the
golfer?
idea. I was a golfer.
Yeah.
I need to find some time to get back into golfing. But I love the idea of the Algarve. I love the idea of the temperature, the way of life, the siesta style attitude.
Yeah, nice.
But we just need to build a portfolio to allow us to get there. So yeah, Portugal if I stayed in Europe, and back to Asia if I stepped outside of Europe.
Just want to add on to that because you're obviously a grafter. You work a lot. We're here late.
We're now, yeah. We fit it in when we could, yeah.
Can you see yourself retiring, or do you think you'll always have that itch to work?
I think, So I don't want to use the word ADHD because obviously it gets bandied around a little bit. My business group, and I do call it a group, is made up of lots of little arms now, and those arms keep me quite entertained and quite intrigued and quite interested. Would I see myself stepping away from that completely? I think, like us sitting here now, I think we probably all find it quite hard to do that.
Yeah.
I think a property portfolio gives us a purpose and it gives us a legacy element and a cash flow. I think business keeps us young, keeps us going. I just need to find a balance, like a lot of us do, of life and work. I'm not there yet. So when I say 55 is my goal for retirement into somewhere like Portugal, I would see that probably 3 or 4 months a year there, 3 or 4 months a year back in the business, tinkering away, having a really good, powerful team around me to manage those assets that I've left there. Because, if you want to create cash, I'll say we create a lot of cash in cash flow leasing or Castle View, but if you want to create cash in abundance, it's having the right business model, because business will create your cash much quicker than property. We see all types of trading businesses and limited company businesses coming through our books that we lend for, and some of those guys are making huge amounts of money in their own segments, and they've really got the formulas down right. But that cash allows you to invest in asset, and that's the key. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place to finish. Well, thank you
awesome,
so
mate.
much, James. Really appreciate it. Brilliant. Yeah.
Nice one.